Yeah, so in the spirit of reduction, we decided to do the panel without a moderator, so this should be total chaos. And um, after the panel that we just had, in the words of Monty Python, now for something completely different. And to start with another bad joke, and this panel is like a bad joke. It's an astronomer, a poet, and an ad man walk into a bar or get on stage. And ultimately, the punchline should be stardust. And those who heard Deepak Chopra's speech yesterday should really understand he talked about stardust and trying to connect cosmology and consciousness, and saying that we're all of the same substance, that ultimately we're made from the same stardust as the stardust in the universe. And you'll need to comment on that later. But his ability to reduce is absolutely brilliant. He was able to create a concept which ultimately is ultimately a mix of religion and science, but appeals neither to religious zealots nor to scientists, but does appeal to everyone else. So he has created an extremely wide protocol. And this is what reduction is about. It's about creating constraints that ultimately drive creativity and innovation. And this is something that we are here to discuss, specifically how it applies to various aspects of human activity. You always reduce to basic building blocks, and these basic building blocks can be words, can be letters, as in DNA, can be sentences. A great Austrian philosopher, Ludwig Wittgenstein, said that in order to understand the language, you need to understand the sentence. So for that, that's a basic building block. And in any case, you always reduce, and you need to reduce to the point when you can reduce no further. And sometimes you get something brilliant. Sometimes you get a metaphor. Just continuing with this literary concept, Hemingway said that you need to boil it down, know what to leave out, tell a story in 6 words. And the story that he told in 6 words, his famous parable was for sale, baby shoes never worn. And it's the essence of human tragedy. You can imagine this family and the child that never wore the shoes. And based on that, there's been so many 6-word stories. There's actually a site, a community called 6-Word Memoirs, started by Smith Magazine. But we wanted to also take it a level higher and see how reduction as a scientific principle can be applied to other areas of human activity. So I was speaking with my friend, a brilliant mathematician in Berkeley, Edward Frankel, with whom we were discussing the idea of truth. And I write, in addition to being a venture capitalist, I write for children. And we talked about the constraints in writing for children that are different than from that are constraints in writing for adults. Specifically, you use completely different rhythm. You're constrained by different rhymes. You cannot use the same metaphors that you would use otherwise. And ultimately, you need to be truthful, highly objective, genuine. Otherwise, children notice it immediately. And for me, it was the way we concluded that discussion was that writing for children was like proving a math theorem, and where you also need to be fundamentally truthful. And this is it really boils down to the essence of reduction, and this conclusion of writing being like solving a math theorem is going back to the ancient Greeks, which had 2 main subjects, rhetoric and math. And to continue on this, I have a master in rhetoric and master in science to drive the point forward. So maybe you can say how reduction applies in advertising?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's very simple in terms of a concept, is that advertising, our job really is to make the complex very simple. And over at BBDO, where I work, our whole philosophy and our sort of way of being is around how can we get for brands, some of the world's largest, most complex brands, down to something called a reductionist nugget, an idea so big that you can almost tweet it or you can text it. And you'll see what I mean by how we apply that to a company and how it can become a rallying cry, and how basically a whole business can then be a springboard for that. So we all know that famous Nike, you just do it in 3 words. For another client of ours, GE, it's all about imagination at work. And for Snickers, for a brand that was doing incredibly badly for sort of 3 years with negative sales, we really tried to bake it down. How could we explain what this brand was all about through literally 5 or 6 words? And we reached to an idea which was, you're not you when you're hungry. And we're going to show you now just very quickly an idea how this comes to life as an application in TV, and then showing you how it can, more importantly, come to life in the more reduced, more spirited channels that engage the consumer more. So I'm just going to show you very quickly an ad that we developed for Snickers all around this whole concept of you're not you when you're hungry.
Mike, what is your deal, man?
Oh, come on, man. You've been riding me all day.
Mike, you're playing like Betty White out there.
That's not what your girlfriend said.
Baby!
Whoa.
Use Snickers. Better?
Better. Hey, I'm all bad. That hurt.
You're not you when you're hungry. Snickers satisfies.
So you can see we're tapping into behavior. You're not the same person that you normally are when you're hungry, and obviously this is as a metaphor and as a sort of reduced idea, traveled all across the world from a TV perspective. But how could you engage the consumers more in this, in those platforms that are more digitally driven and more sort of reductionist driven? So we connected in London and across the UK with some of those very famous personalities that have large Twitter followings. And one of those in case is actually a lady called Katie Price. She's a bit of a glam supermodel. And you can obviously imagine with 3,000 followers, very similar to a Paris Hilton, what she was tweeting about wasn't the most intellectually stimulating conversation. So what we decided to do was we engaged with her and overtook her Twitter handle and started tweeting some expressions that obviously clearly weren't coming from her at those moments from 1 till 4 o'clock when she might have been hungry. So what she'd normally be tweeting about, a celebrity kind of gossip, these were the tweets that we then started putting out there. Oh my God, Eurozone debt problems can only be properly solved by fiscal union. And we did about 15 of those, and obviously then people were tweeting like, what the hell is going on with this? This is all a little bit strange, all a little bit different. And then at 4 o'clock, when she needed that sort of that satisfaction and needed that chocolate bar to sort of help her, you know, get back to normality and to be to the person she normally is, he then had a tweet that basically said, "You're not you when you're hungry." And so this took off and got onto the news channels, everything, and we did it with about 5 other celebrities as well. You can see Rio Ferdinand, a famous football player. He says, he was talking about, I think it says there, about a cello or about finishing his cardigan. So it was a fantastic way to engage a consumer in a more reductionist way, but still around the same core idea of you're not you when you're hungry. And we followed that notion and that idea into other platforms, and we did this with Google. We discovered as well that when you're hungry, when you're not you, you can obviously not behave in the certain normal fashion that you do, and you can sometimes not spell correctly. So what we did with Google was actually a campaign which was super smart because no one ever buys AdWords that are misspelt. So they were extremely cheap. So we basically bought the 1,000 most searched keywords, and we bought 40 of those misspelt. So we had around over 1 million search terms that we were obviously then connecting the Snickers brand to. So when you did actually spell, let's say, for example, business incorrectly, you can see what shows up here is you're not you when you're hungry. So once again, it just shows you as an idea and as a concept, it has great legs, but all beat around one central core reductionist 6-word idea of you're not you when you're hungry. So we need to try and do that from an advertising perspective, reduce down the massive, complex, the big complex companies down into those 3, 4, 5 words, and then you use that reductionist nugget as a springboard to then communicate it across multiple different channels.
6 words.
6 words is normally the objective.
Yeah. How does it work for you?
Well, in science, we figured out what Simon just was talking about 500 years ago, so we're ahead of the game.
Took us a while, right?
Science is about curious people who are trying to figure out the world around us. How does it work? And when you look at the world around us, you see essentially complexity. It's difficult to figure out. You look at life, that's the ultimate in complexity. You look at the stars and the planets moving in some incomprehensible ways among them. That was what happened 500 years ago. Copernicus put them in their place, so to say, and simplified what existed then as a model. So the 20th century was very successful in that reductionist approach in physics. That led to something very complex, similar to what visually is represented in the Mandelbrot set here, to be explained in very simple ways by rules. So the simplicity of something visually complex like this is in the rule that generates it. The generation is simple. And so what you hear today about systems biology and systems chemistry and systems everything in science is in fact the complexity which we see, but which we haven't figured out yet in terms of those kind of Mandelbrot simple equations. And so a lot of the complexity in science is simply a measure of our ignorance. So you look at something as complex as the universe on the largest scale, and this is it. That's the distribution of dark matter, which is followed by the galaxies in the observable universe on a very large scale. It looks like this. It's becoming a DLD tradition for me to show this slide. Started 4 years ago, but there is an example of something which looks like the Mandelbrot set and could be explained in simple terms. Not exactly this one that you see there, although it looks complicated. But basically,
That's the basic idea of reduction.
the point is,
And I've got no idea what it means.
the point is, when does the reduction actually fail? And
Well,
that's the question to you.
I think it absolutely fails here.
The answer is 6.
The answer is 6. The 6 actually is the theme of this panel.
We have split personalities, so there are 6 of us actually.
No, but it's for me. I think it's if you look at what can fail in poetry, it's a bad metaphor. We all know what a good metaphor is. We all know Shakespeare's metaphor of life being a theater, which is recurrent in many of his works, from As You Like It to Macbeth, and then when a metaphor is bad, when it doesn't illuminate new meaning, when it doesn't take you to a different dimension. And metaphor ultimately is the word metaphor means transfer. So you need to be transferred somewhere. You need to transfer the meaning, and this is so when it doesn't do that, reduction ultimately fails. When does it fail for you? How do you know when you went too far?
Well, what we try to do is try to understand, once we've got to that reductionist idea, it's not about just putting it onto every single channel. You just got to think about the right channels to put it into. And I think that, Hemingway was talking about reducing everything down to 6 words. I think now he was almost ahead of his time. You look at something like Vine, which is about It's a new canvas upon which we can place our advertising, our messaging, and that is about trying to get stuff out in 6 seconds. And so, you know, these new channels, is like we need to explore how we can use them, how we can engage with them, and utilize them for brand communication. So something we've just done with Lowe's, and Lowe's obviously is all about home improvement. And one of those big things that they try to do is create these how-to videos that are generally distributed through YouTube. But we thought of it as a way, like, why could we not create those how-to videos in very simple, very quick to use, and very quick to be able to browse and to view, and create some actual 6-second Vine how-to videos. So you can see here on the left, you can see when you're actually utilizing a drill to create some holes, how you can utilize a post-it note to obviously not make any mess. Or on the left, on the middle one, you can see it's all about how can you actually put up a shelf in a very simple and easy way. And so once again, these are these new reductionist kind of ways that we can actually communicate our messages, and utilizing these new reduced and reductionist technologies to actually apply our communications and our messaging as well. And the last thing I want to show is something that we just did out of our Brazil office as well. It's once again, how can you understand the new opportunities that are there from a reductionist idea to get your communications out in a way that will stand out. And this is something that we did for an an insurance company. And you can see how it, once again, in a very reduced, very simple way, can get a message across very, very quickly.
Nothing beats good advertising.
There you go. So you can see it gets across once again in a reduced, simple manner, gets across the message, but in a reduced, simple format. And that's everything that we're trying to do now, is understand how you can use new technologies, how you can use these new opportunities to get your message away in a much more reduced, simplified kind of way.
Let's talk about the universe for a couple more minutes.
Okay.
There's this idea of a fine-tuned universe it's fine-tuned specifically to allow for human life. We're talking Deepak Chopra things. One of the fundamental problems with that is that there's so many variables. There's a tremendous number of variables that needed to be fine-tuned. Can we reduce that further?
I hope we can. In fact, I would say it's a clear sign that we're ignorant. We haven't found the one that works and explains everything, the grand unified theory, if you will. It doesn't have to be one, but it certainly can be reduced from what we have today. So most of those parameters are simply a mark for how ignorant we are. We don't understand.
So the answer is not
the
42.
structure. No, it's probably 6.
I think we're running out of time, but if anyone has questions, maybe 1 or 2. Yes?
I'm a neuroscientist, and the human brain's working memory at any given time can process about 7 bits of information. And I'm wondering if that had any relationship to the 6-word mantra in advertising. Because if you had a slogan that was 10 words, it's impossible for people to remember it.
Yeah, I mean, we try to. I mean, actually, our London office, it's amazing when you walk into the front entrance, they have all the brands they represent reduced down to 1 word. And they've managed to have a lot more success in getting it even more reduced down. We try to aim around sort of 3 to 4. But yeah, there's obviously a close correlation there. But I think the more reduced you can be, the bigger springboard you can have to do great work.
Yeah, the more you can reduce to basic building blocks, the more new meanings you can create, and the larger and the more interesting the new universe would be. Thank you very much.